All right, let's do some Picard season 3 before R&B has to
Picard.
go. I want to hear more about it. I can't wait.
Yeah. So Rob from Order 42 show, are you a Star Trek guy? Did you watch Picard seasons 1 and 2?
Honestly, I haven't been that much of a Star Trek fan since. Well, I mean, I'm just not as big of a Star Trek fan, but I've always been intrigued by it. And honestly, I hadn't paid much attention to it because R&B said that Picard seasons 1 and 2 weren't great. So I was like, okay, well, I don't have to waste my time.
They're terrible.
I watched season 1 and I checked. I forced myself through those final episodes of season 1. Season 2, I was like, man, I am not wasting another minute.
I had to watch season 2 just because I love John Delancey that much, right? That's the whole reason why I watched season 2 of Picard.
Yeah. But rumor has it from our good friend Robert Meyer Burnett that season 3 might make a complete U-turn into a positive direction for the next generation crew with Picard and everybody coming back. Now everybody knows that after season 2, they had already announced that the whole cast of Next Generation was coming back for season 3. You know, we got a teaser trailer and all that. Most of people's responses was like, wow, they're going to kill the whole thing at this point in time going into season 3. Our good friend Doomcock is completely off track of getting into season 3. He's like, I'm done. He's off the Star Trek train at this point because of all the damage they've done, which to an extent I completely understand his point of view on. I'm sure Tom is going to have some thoughts on this as well. But with what Robert's been saying, he's kind of got my interest piqued a little bit with Picard season 3, and because of that, I think I'm going to check it out now. So Rob, tell us a little bit about Picard season 3 and where are we going moving forward?
First of all, I hate modern Star Trek.
Yeah,
I've jokingly said that Star Trek we're in year 14 of the great, actually year 13 of the great, actually almost year 14 of the great Star Trek hostage crisis. I hated J.J. Abrams' Star Trek movies. I hated Star Trek Discovery. I hated Picard seasons 1 and 2. And to be honest, don't like Strange New Worlds at all. Or as I like to call it, the hot daddy and his crew of beautiful, sexually ambiguous girls traveling the galaxy. I mean, I don't believe one shred of Strange New Worlds. I don't believe that there's any kind of quasi-military structure in that at all. And it's literally a show built around a very attractive man and his pompadour. It's so, which is fine. You know, you can look at that. I get it, but I don't believe a shred of that show. I don't believe the way it's lit. I don't believe the way anybody talks to one another in that show. Anyway, it's like, it's a throwback to the 60s. No, it's not. It's a throwback to what you thought the 60s were. It is Star Trek Strange New Worlds is made by people that never took Star Trek seriously. It was always a goof for them. And I hate it. And I'll flat out say it. Yeah, we're talking about Strange New Worlds is so good. Is it? Is it? Really? Look, it's all beautifully made. It looks great. And Captain Pike is a beautiful man. I get it. I have a man crush on him just like everyone else. I love seeing him run around in his apron and cooking food for people that he would never fraternize with. But okay, it's fine. There's no command.
I will say this, though, Robert. Leading into Strange New Worlds, you and I had a discussion about various things that you and I knew. And we had kind of figured out that there was, I feel like if it wasn't for Strange New Worlds happening, we wouldn't have got to Picard season 3.
Well, Picard season 3 was shot concurrently with season 2.
Well, what I'm saying is that at that point, Strange New Worlds was kind of the first project that was pushing Kurtzman out the door. And then you have what's his face, who you've been in contact with for season 3, who took over for season 3 of Picard. And I think those are the two that those events happening and keeping Kurtzman away from this shit as much as possible, and then Akiva Goldsman with Picard, I think was partially the key.
Well, here's the thing. With Star Trek, in all honesty, Alex Kurtzman left his duties for Star Trek to go make Man Who Fell to Earth. That was him and Jenny Lumet. They went off and did their own miniseries. And so Terry Matalas, who's a great showrunner in his own right, Terry Matalas, the showrunner of Picard season 3, came from the Berman era of Trek. He was Brandon Braga's assistant. He started on Voyager, worked on Enterprise. He's worked his way up as a writer on many shows, and he became a showrunner on 12 Monkeys, the TV series based on the movie. He came on board and wrote a few episodes of Picard season 2, but he was made the showrunner of Picard season 3 because everyone else was checked out. Kurtzman went off and did Man Who Fell to Earth. Akiva Goldsman was doing Strange New Worlds, and Terry basically was given carte blanche to do whatever he wanted.
Yep. And that's what I'm saying exactly, Robert, because when we had talked, what I had known and what you had known, it all made sense and melded, because what had happened was, for those who don't know, Strange New Worlds was Akiva Goldsman's baby.
Yes.
Kurtzman didn't want that show because at that time, before they got their new deal, they were only allowed to have 5 shows at a time running simultaneously.
Yeah.
And Kurtzman was pushing hardcore for his Section 31 show. And Akiva got Strange New Worlds greenlit under his nose, and that pissed Kurtzman off because that pushed his Section 31 show off again until they got the new deal.
They already wrecked Section 31. They should never do a Section 31 show. They completely.
But what that did then was made Akiva. He was busy with Strange New Worlds over there, hence leaving Terry able to do Picard 3, and that's what I was getting at. Sorry.
What people need to understand is Terry was basically given a free rein. Everything about Picard season 3 is different. Everything. The opening credits are different. The music is different. Everything is different. Now, there are ties to Picard seasons 1 and 2, small ties. Like you'll see the opening scene with Star Trek Picard season 3 is Laris, the Romulan, is with Picard in Chateau Picard for the first 5 minutes. You never see her again. And all the rest of the cast, with the exception of Raffi, is not in the show. So here's how you should think of Picard. Picard season 3 is a 10-hour Next Generation movie. And the way that I consider it, I call it in my own mind, Star Trek The Next Generation Requiem. And it is so different than modern Star Trek. You can tell right away. And here's what I'd say. All you skeptics, give Star Trek Picard season 3 30 minutes of your time. Maybe 35. I don't know exact. Give it 35 minutes of your time. Maybe 40. If you're not into it by minute 40, check out. Tell me I'm wrong. I guarantee you'll be locked in by 40 minutes in the first episode. Because I went through the same thing. And when I've watched all 10 episodes twice.
And you are, just so everybody knows, a diehard Star Trek fan.
Yeah.
That's hated everything that they've put out there.
Hated it. Hated it. And it was shocking to me. It was shocking to me. As a matter of fact, I really wish that Star Trek Picard 1 and you don't even have to see Star Trek Picard 1 and 2. None of it matters. I mean, there are things that they had to refer to canonically but you don't really have to know. If you're a Star Trek The Next Generation fan, this is the Star Trek The Next Generation movie you've wanted to see. It's just 10 hours long instead of 2. And there's so much going on in this. And you'll know right away, it's so different from Star Trek Picard season 1 and 2. Everything about it is different. And it doesn't feel the same. The characters don't feel the same. Everything is totally different. I mean, I'll give you an example. Fuck it. I can tell you this. It's not like I can't. So in season 2 or season 3, it opens in Chateau Picard. We know that from Family.
Mm-hmm.
After Laris leaves, Picard is packing up his chateau to go somewhere else. And he's sitting at the desk in his office, and you hear a familiar chirping.
Mm.
And you're like, huh, what is that? And then Picard's like, computer, where is the what is that? And the computer's like, I don't know what this is. So Picard is looking around, and you hear this chirping. We know what it is, but he doesn't know what it is. He's looking around, and he's looking around all these boxes and everything. And he finally finds the box where this chirping is coming from, and he opens it up. And there is his season 3 TNG uniform.
Mm-hmm.
And what's chirping is his comm badge. That's 30 years old. And he's looking at this going, what is this? And it's a signal he doesn't recognize. And he puts it in, and it's from Beverly Crusher. There is, I'll say this. There is an opening teaser with Beverly Crusher and a guy she's working with, and her ship is attacked, and it's a cold open, and we don't know what happens. And she gets to send this signal, and then she's shot and wounded. And that's the cold open. And then you see Picard sees this, and the signal coming through his old 30-year-old comm badge is from Beverly Crusher. Come to these coordinates. I need your help. Don't trust anyone. Cut to a bar where Picard meets Riker. And you can see the camaraderie between them already. The tone of this is all very different. Picard's like, I don't understand what's going on. She mentioned it's this kind of a message, and Riker's like, oh, it's this kind of a message, huh? No wonder you don't know what it is. And he's like, well, what do you mean? And Riker's like, well, when you were Locutus, when you were taken away from the Borg, you knew everything about our protocols, so we needed to come up with a way to communicate with one another, ship to ship, internal communications, or with other Starfleet vessels that you didn't know. So we created a protocol, a communications protocol, that shifted numerals like three numbers further than what they really are. So if it's a 1, it would be a 4. So Beverly has told you to come to this, and Picard thinks it's an empty area of space. That's not where she's really telling you to come. She's really telling you to go here. And so there is it's a nebula. It's in the middle of a nebula. And so Picard's like, well, how are we going to get there? And Riker's like, well, I'm retired, and you're retired, and we need a ship. What are we going to do? And it turns out that the Federation is having what they call Frontier Day. It's the 250th anniversary of the United Federation of Planets. So they're recalling all these ships back to Sector 001. And Riker's like, well, my old ship, the Titan, has been refitted. That's a new refit of the Titan. Maybe we can just gin up
with quantum torpedoes.
We're just gonna, let's just say we're doing an inspection, and while we're there, we'll figure out a way to divert the ship to this nebula, which is just outside of Federation space. And so they do that. They beam on board, and 7 of 9's the first officer on the ship, and they meet the captain of the Titan, and he hates both of them.
Oh.
He's like, you guys you don't do things by the book. You're dangerous. I don't. And
it's like Maverick from Top Gun.
That's all I'm going to tell you. It goes from there. But I will say that from this moment, we are off to the races. And any Star Trek fans, will be delighted and intrigued. And the story is fucking epic. And it has its roots all through Berman's Star Trek. As a matter of fact, there's even I can say this because it's so obscure, I couldn't even believe they did it. There's even a reference to the Judith and Garfield Reeves Stevens Star Trek novel, The Return, which was the book they wrote with Shatner after Ashes of Eden. It happens, and I was like, no effing way. And there was so much stuff in this that I could not believe they did. And if you're a true diehard Star Trek fan, it is so much fun. It's so exciting. It's so great that I guarantee it. Give it 40 minutes. If you're out after 40 minutes, fine. and come back to me. You don't know what you're talking about. And everyone's like, and this even one of my favorite people in the world is in the chat right now. She's been saying the damage has already been done. Why is it done? If you tell a new story, what difference does it make? I mean, the fact is, a great story is a great story.
So I've seen a lot of people in chat ask this question, and I've also heard this outside of just tonight's stream. Do they address Picard being a robot and all that sort of stuff in this, or do they kind of bypass that? And it's like,
that was my question. Yeah,
no, they do. They talk about it, but for the most part, they don't pay much attention to it.
okay.
I mean, it's not really an issue. It's brought up, but it's not really an issue. Because that whole thing is stupid anyway. It's the dumbest shit ever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's dumb because they dealt with why a human being should not be turned into an android in the first season of the original series, in one of the first 10 episodes of Star Trek. And what are little girls made of? Dr. Corby uses technology and creates an android body for himself. And of course, nobody remembers that. But they tell you this is why a human being should not be a fucking android, a robot, because you're soulless. So I mean,
So does Picard seem like Picard?
Oh yeah, he always
he's better. I mean, in Star Trek Picard seasons 1 and 2, Patrick Stewart is just being Patrick Stewart.
Yeah,
he's back in the character of Jean-Luc Picard, and it's glorious.
So Rob, I have to say, everything you've been talking about has been amazing, but when you had Doug and Terry on your show, and it's been some time ago now, I was transfixed, right? Just the amount of care that Terry Matalas, I helped him buy Christmas lights earlier today on Twitter. It's a whole different story. Terry Matalas, I mean, it was great. But I mean, just to see them talking about the show and the excitement and everything about the care that they put into it, I'm like, it's got to be worth the 40 minutes, right?
There is so much in this show that is it's funny because I didn't know Terry Matalas. I mean, I knew who he was, but I didn't know him.
Yeah.
And I met him over Twitter, and then I ran into him at the John Williams concert at the Hollywood Bowl, but I didn't know him, and he was incredulous. He's like, he could tell I really had seen what I said I saw, and then we become friendly. But it's so funny. Look, all I can do is report what I saw. I loved Star Trek Picard season 3. There's nothing about it that feels similar to Star Trek Picard seasons 1 and 2. The way it's done, everything about it. I will tell you this though. I think the end credits, the main credits happen at the end of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
They're entirely full of spoilers. It's really, 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 really clever, and you'll never know. Yeah, and as you watch it, you're like, oh, after each episode, you see more. The credits are the same. I mean, whatever names, but the design of it, the opening, the music, you'll hear them. Terry actually sent me a piece of music. I wish I could play it. I wish I could send it to you all right now. You'll listen to it and be like, oh my God. The music, it's all classic TNG music. It's all music from the movies and TNG. It's Jerry Goldsmith.
I'm surprised you haven't sent it to me one night when you were drunk or something.
I know, right? I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible.
I love getting late night tweets once in a while from Robert. It's always good stuff.
Listen,
check this shit out.
But no, it's there's stuff in there. There's stuff in that there are things in like episode 5, as an example. There is an exchange in that episode between two characters that was jaw dropping to me. I was like, and it's. I mean, come on, we already know Moriarty from 2 episodes of TNG is in it.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
I mean, and I asked Terry about that, and I'll leave that story for him to tell. But they were like, "Why do you what?" But he had to convince me. He was like, they didn't want him in it, and he offered to pay his own money to get. They're like, "Why do you want? Who is this person?" I don't know.
He's a holodeck character.
Yeah,
Well,
they
since
don't know.
since Nick stole my question, do you have to have seen season 2 to watch this? Because you've sold me on watching this,
No.
but I really don't want to have to
No,
dredge through
there's
season
nothing
2
in seasons 1 and 2 that have any bearing, other than the fact that people be like, wait, there's a few references to things. The only thing people will add, the first 5 minutes, you will meet Laris, the Romulan Laris,
Yeah.
and people are going to go, who is that? But you can tell it's just an older woman who's hot and is a Romulan, and she's saying, well, we're going to go to this place. Never spoken of again.
So
She disappears. You never see her again.
So at what point in time when you were watching this, were you like started to change your mind where you're like, okay, I think this might be good? Like,
You know what? I'll tell you, for me, it was in the first 10 minutes.
wow,
Actually,
the
probably
first 10
15
minutes?
It was in the bar with
Okay.
Riker. It was in the bar with Riker when they refer back to Best of Both Worlds, and they talked about inner ship communication, because it was something that was canonically, it fit with what we'd already seen, and it was really clever. The idea, of course, they would have had to have come up with some way to communicate with each other within the ship that Picard, that Locutus wouldn't know. They had to come up with some new way, and the way it was done was really interesting. And that Beverly Crusher used that thing. I mean, this had never been spoken before, but it was a way to use canon and add something to canon that was really, really interesting. And I'm like, that's fascinating. And it was Riker who goes, of course you didn't know what that was. And when he explains it, I'm like, that's really cool, because they went back to canon and they plussed canon. They added something that didn't violate canon, that added to something that we just didn't know.
So was there anything in the show where you're like, that's not really canon, like
Nope.
that's not accurate?
No. All of this was so, there is so much cool shit in this show that I can't even begin. Like, I don't want to ruin anything. But
I know Worf's been the big talk of, like, he's like a big huge pussy in this thing.
Okay, I'm just going to tell you one thing. The first time you see Worf, he cuts off someone's head.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And,
I like it because Worf's one of my favorite characters.
I'll say Terry's probably, if Terry's listening, he's going to be like, why did you Worf is a fucking badass. And as Terry Metallo says, so here's what Terry told me. So Dan Curry, one of the 2 visual effects supervisors of Next Generation, Dan Curry is himself a martial artist. He created the Klingon Batleth. He designed it. Terry went back to Dan Curry and said, hey, I need Worf to have a different, brand new Klingon weapon. Can you design one? So,
oh wow, so
Terry
the original
Metallo
creator
went
of the
to
Batleth.
Dan Curry,
Okay,
created the Batleth
Yeah.
to come up with a brand new Klingon weapon that is basically a Klingon broadsword that is on Worf's. He carries it on his back. And actually, Terry told me an interesting. Well, I can't. I don't want to divulge. Terry's going to kill me if I said that. But when Worf shows up, he cuts off an MFer's head, and that's not the only person he kills. And I'm just saying, the idea that Worf is a pacifist and walking the way of peace is something he aspires to do.
Not something he actually does, but just something he aspires
All
to.
I'm going to say is he aspires to do it.
Okay.
You know, and it's awesome.